So ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. And we're joined now by Mr. Tewolde, who gave us his introduction this morning while he welcomed us. There's so much happened with Ethiopia and Ethiopian Airlines at the same time. You've taken over in the country now as the biggest hub in Africa, taken over from Dubai, which had held it outside Joburg before. And indeed the airline is now reaching places it hasn't reached before. 70 years old. It's taken a while to get to this point, but what's the strategy in the long term and how did you get to this place?
Yeah, it's 70 years, 7 decades, very long. And we still believe that we have not grown as much as we should. Because if you divide the 70 years into two, we can say that the first 60 years, in terms of growth, we have not done much. Most of the growth that we have today came in the last 1 decade. So we believe that the last decade with our Vision 2025 has given us enough lesson that it is possible for us to grow. We still have tremendous opportunity for growth. And now that we have achieved almost all the parameters that we have placed for 2025, 7 years ahead of the time. So by 2018, when we made the review, most of the targets have been achieved. And the driving force was to make Ethiopian Airlines the leading aviation group in the continent, and it is already since 2018. So now it is time for us to review the environment, review our capabilities, and see what we can be in the future. And we also have this kind of controversial thinking that we as an airline believe that the airline should have 15 years strategic roadmap at any point in time on a rolling basis. So since 2025 has still 5 years to come, and we came up now with 2035, meaning 15 years strategic roadmap from now. So it is already the largest airline in Africa, not only the airline but also in cargo, in MRO, in aviation academy, in catering, and the others. So going forward, we think that we can scale up on this growth. In Vision 2035, we have a solution. So we will have the airline flying to 130 destinations right now with 130 airplanes, modern airplanes. By the way, our average fleet age is 5 years. Yeah. So it is less than half of the industry average. The industry average, global industry average is around 12 years. So 5 years is quite modern and young fleet. So it will be very easy for our sales and marketing distribution channels to sell airline ticket, hotel, package tours together. And it will be also a one-stop shopping for the customer. We are also venturing on aerospace manufacturing. We are working with our colleagues with Boeing, Airbus, Bombardier, de Havilland, and on the components, Safran is on board, and Collins Aerospace. So we are going to manufacture low-end, labor-intensive materials and provide to them. It will create a lot of jobs. We are a country of 110 million people, a young workforce, so job creation is a very daunting challenge for our country and for our government. So this is the way the airline can contribute to the socio-economic development of the country also.
But we've seen that with Egypt, with South Africa. Now they've had strong airlines. They've not moved in the way you had. So how did over these last 10 years, what was different to what Kenya was doing or what South Africa was doing? How come Ethiopian got it right, and what did the others get wrong to not be able to grow in the way that you're doing?
Well, it will be very difficult for me to speak on behalf of those carriers, but I can speak on behalf of Ethiopian. Well, the way we see it, I think there are success factors which have helped us in our success, and also which we want to develop them further to upgrade them. The first one is the corporate governance. The corporate governance is very important. It is 100% government owned, but at the same time it is managed by professionals. So this has helped us a lot, because businesses should be managed by professionals who know how to manage the business, and they're focused purely on economic terms and business practices and principles. So I thank the Ethiopian government for its discipline in allowing us to manage the airline like any professional management managing an airline elsewhere in the world.
Do you ever fall out? Do you ever get to a point where a government policy you think is just totally wrong as far as it would be for the airline? And do they listen to you when you do that?
It's very interesting, you know, as you said before, Alan, it's 70 years, not old, young airline. 70 years young airline. And in those 70 years, it has passed through 3 governments. The emperor's time, and also the Derg's time, and now the current government. So fortunate for the airline, all of them were disciplined to allow the airline to manage on itself. So as an owner, of course they have responsibility, but ownership and management has always been separated. And we want to continue that way. So I think this is a big differentiator, because in some of the airlines that you mentioned, the government through the board or directly through the ministries interfere a lot. And then this is a business where we all know that it's a very low margin. So the cost of error is very high. So you make a small mistake, you're gone. And the other reason is this business cannot be run for short term, cannot be managed for short term. I understand businesses are managed from quarter to quarter in Europe and America, but we don't believe that's right. Because we can see that the drawbacks, we can see the disadvantages, even in Europe and America. Because if the whole purpose of management is to satisfy Wall Street every quarter, then you have a problem, because you have to see also the next 5 years, the next 10 years. So the long-term planning also helped us a lot.
And indeed, you've been here, you've been in this job for 9 years, I think, now, something like that.
Well, overall in Ethiopian Airlines, 35 years.
And yeah, 35 years in the experience, but 9 years at the top. And I think if you look
9 and a few months.
At airline CEOs, and I remember your predecessor at Agurma standing up somewhere and saying to CEOs, how many of you have been in the job for more than 6 months?
Yeah.
And people were sitting like that. There's revolving doors.
Yeah, it's a revolving door.
There's probably a few gone since lunchtime and changed over.
Yeah.
Do you think that makes a difference? Do you think
it does?
Airlines need to be consistent and trust?
Yes, because you know, if you are a CEO of an airline today, any airline, you're going to buy airplanes. Airplanes was of $150 million to $100 million. Omar, they were right? They cost that much. So 150 or 200 million dollars worth of expensive machines, which you are going to use them for at least 20 years. So if you are not stable yourself, what kind of decision are you going to make? So stability is very important. This is a capital intensive business and labor intensive business. You have to train pilots, you have to train technicians. So if I am a CEO today, I have to think for the airline in the next 10 years, in the next 5 years. So whatever I do should not focus today. We have a principle in Ethiopian Airlines. We call it double visioning. Double visioning means I have 2 eyes, so one eye is focused on today and the other eye should be on tomorrow. So yeah, stability matters.
Now, you said in your opening address this morning about the importance of collaboration with other airlines, and it's like a buzzword we often hear,
Yeah.
and then it never works
And
when
it doesn't happen.
somebody wants to collaborate. They don't
Yeah.
want to do it. Now, you do some work, ASCII, you mentioned before, you've got Malawi and
Yeah.
Mozambique, I think.
Mozambique and Chad. We also manage SIBA, Equatorial Guinea,
Guinea, yeah.
and we are discussing with Ghana and Zambia.
So how does
Zambia is
that
almost
work?
on the final stage.
How does that work with those governments? Aren't they just a bit suspicious that you're coming in with 49%?
Yeah, suspicion is there. Unfortunately, in our continent, suspicion is very predominant. So, but we tell them that our interest is not to make money there. After all, you know, you don't make money with this little startup airlines. It's loss making, because we know that when you start an airline for a number of years, you are going to lose money. But the thing is, we see the future. For instance, look, ASCII today has 10 airplanes. So far, we have made sure that it is disciplined to serve the region first. Because unfortunately, the first priority of any African country when they establish an airline is to go to Europe with one airplane or two airplanes. It doesn't work. It's just a recipe for disaster or for a failure. So ASCII, 10 years, has not gone out of Africa. 10 years. But there are airlines that you see here, less than a year, already flying to Europe. So we made sure that it is disciplined. We made sure that there is enough feed and defeed in the hub in Lomé. And now ASCII is ready to fly to Paris. And West Africa, Europe is a big market, white spot right now. We also started flights from West Africa to the United States. Today we fly from Lomé to New York, from Lomé to Houston, from Abidjan to New York. So it's a win-win. The governments will have the air transport that is much needed for the society. They have their own brand, because Malawi Airline doesn't have Ethiopian brand. Although we own 49%, we are allowed it to have its own brand. So we call it multiple brands, single unit of production. The single unit of production in Addis helps us to take advantage of volume, because these are 2-3 airplanes, and our industry is volume driven. Yep. So in order to bring unit cost down to an acceptable level, so we have to manage all of them here. Maintenance, training, flying and flying operations and everything. So it's working well, but at the end of the day, these airlines will grow to fly intercontinental on their own. That way, we're going to change this 20% market share.
But if we look just a little bit down the road, we've seen recently Qatar buying into Rwanda. So Rwandair now has a similar strength behind it.
From Qatar. Yeah.
How do you see that in terms of competition? What are you going to do? Collaborate, or are you going to wipe them out?
Well, very tough question.
Sorry, Shoba.
Well, we are always ready for collaboration, but we don't see collaboration in that part of the world. Yeah. We are going to compete. We are going to coexist. The market is enough for all of us. And we firmly believe that with 70 years service in the continent, we know Africa better than anyone. So the local knowledge and the local connections and the local brand is a huge intangible asset for Ethiopian Airlines. Qatar can have a cooperation with Rwanda. We'll see. But we are always open for competition.
But the Gulf carriers, and you and I have been on panels before,
Yes.
when we've attacked Emirates or whoever, they say, and I think it's quite a good point, it's fine, we're flying in, why are you guys not flying around your own continent a little bit more? That's why they want those fifth freedoms, so there's a need to deliver. Can't we hit the competition by actually going to the places that other people want to go to anyway. Develop more African trade for the Africans.
Yes, this is a huge concern for the continent. We are working with the African Union. You may wish to know that SATM was started by Ethiopian Airlines with the African Union. So now SATM is also supported by the Continental Free Trade Area agreement. And but as it stands today, it's the egg or the chicken, because the inter-Africa trade relation is very low. Africa trades with itself only 16% of its total trade. So Africa trades with Europe, with China, with India, with everybody, but with itself it's only 60%, 16%, 1/6. And when you compare that with Europe, it is more than 60%. So it's very, very low. Cross-border trade between African countries is very low. So it is not generating enough traffic for the airlines to fly as many frequencies as possible. We made a study, and the study showed that the cross-border traffic between African countries, apart from the big ones, is less than 100 a day. 100 passengers a day. Everything, mostly less than 100 passengers a day. And this is not enough to venture into high volume frequency travel like Ryanair or Southwest, or because this is volume based. But now with this Continental Free Trade Agreement, it is going to generate a lot of trade, investment, cross-border investment between countries. And then the air travel will also grow accordingly.
Okay. Now, airlines can suffer from events, and it will be a year ago next week when you had the terrible tragedy, and I know our thoughts will still be with those that perished and their families, and indeed the staff in Ethiopian Airlines, because people often forget the people that are in the airline, and it is a huge blow. How do you manage to rebuild morale, rebuild confidence in your own people as well as in your passengers and the industry?
Well, it's a very tragic accident, and our condolences still go to the victims and victims' families, and we are going to celebrate make first anniversary now on March 10. Yeah, it has taken a very long toll on the airline, on all of us. It has consumed a lot of emotions, energy, and it was very, very shocking. But we were very strong, and even on the day of the accident, we have managed to run all flights without delay and no cancellation at all. As you know, it was a brand new airplane, the MAX, so it has nothing to do with us. We happen to be a very unfortunate airline to have the accident. Otherwise, it could have happened to anyone. The airplane is still grounded, as we all know. Yeah, but we have managed it well. I think we believe that we have managed it well.
That was a tough time. You fought the corner, actually, and as relationships have settled better now with Boeing, with the FAA, and everything. You're moving on now. So
well, we're moving on. Relationship with Boeing has always been good, and as you know, we have been only Boeing customer airline for a long period of time, and now we have the Airbus A350, but still a very dominant part of our fleet is Boeing. So it's a long time relationship ever since the airline was established. We started flight with DC-3, as you know, the McDonnell Douglas, which was bought by Boeing. So yeah, both of us, we have discussed and agreed that the relationship should continue, and it is continuing. And yeah, we have a very good relationship.
And when you talked about the strategy and filling the gaps in Africa, part of that strategy was very much determined by the 737 MAX to be able to take thinner students, but take them further as well. Are you going to be ready for when the grounding is lifted? Is the Ethiopian CAA ready to sign up again? How long after the grounding's lifted do you think you're going to be going back to your orders, or are you going to be looking around?
We have not made that decision, and that decision is not easy for us right now, because we have the 737 NG. We have more than 20 of them in our fleet, so we are committed to the airplane model. But at the same time, the MAX has a problem. It has been grounded for almost a year now, and it has not been clearly decided or clearly known when it is going to be back on the air. So we are discussing with Boeing, and as an airline who unfortunately happened to be with the accident, our situation is different than other airlines which have the MAX grounded. So we will, as and when Boeing decided and gives us the exact date when the airplane is going to fly back, then we will make the assessment. Will we be able to convince our crew, our pilots, our customers, and how long does it take us? And those kind of questions we'll be answering at that time. At this moment, we are waiting for the final decision of the airplanes.
And indeed, it would take some time even after that decision before we're actually flying again. So, and I think Boeing have said convincing the
pilots. And I have to mention
was,
also, and we have to be convinced beyond reasonable doubt that this airplane is good to fly back.
Great. Well, I hope it is, because it's great for you and it's good airline. You said bringing in the Airbus A350, which is opening up different routes to you. What is your route strategy now? You've got this mixed fleet. You've got the Dreamliners as well, reaching out South America and places.
Yeah.
Where else are you thinking of going to?
In 2035, we are now flying to 130 international destinations. That means we have covered the major trading centers, the major cities, the major metropolitan cities in the world. So when we make this study again, where can we grow? Where else can we grow? I mean, profitable growth. So the first area is secondary markets. We've been flying to London for more than 40 years, and now we have Manchester added. We've been flying to Paris for a long period of time, and now we have Marseille added to it. So these secondary markets are now coming up. So there are new avenues for growth for us. More points in the US. We just added Houston, and we are studying Atlanta, Minneapolis, and West Coast. More points in China, and also new trade lanes. Today many people get surprised when we tell them that we are connecting Japan with Sao Paulo and Japan with Argentina. So this is new trade lanes, which is a growth market where we are going to grow to increase this long-haul efficient airplanes, the 787 and the A350. We have not participated in the market between Europe and Asia. Tourist destinations like Bali, Malaysia, Singapore, from a very popular destination from Europe, we have never been participated in those markets. Now we are thinking Asia to Middle East and America to Asia. So because of the geography, we have still this big opportunity for growth. So that's where we are looking for the new long-haul airplanes.
Now, you talked about China and that growth in the number of cities that you serve there as well. Coronavirus, you made the decision for the airline to continue doing that. You took quite some criticism from some of your neighboring countries. Can you just tell us about what made you decide to go that way rather than the way some of the others were going?
This is very interesting, and I'm glad that you are asking me this question because flying direct to China doesn't mean that we are going to import corona. Because rather, passengers from China can travel to Ethiopia and Africa through various other hubs. And that's what interconnected world today means. The Nigeria, I understand that there was one case in Nigeria. But Nigeria doesn't have a direct flight to China. So how else did it get it? So the question is, as per the directive of WHO and others, stopping flight is not the answer. I think it's not the recommended answer. So that was our major reasoning. And also, isolating China because it has a temporary problem, I think it's not fair and ethical. And okay, European carriers stopped flying to China, Alan. You and I know that they stopped flight to China. The Chinese carriers were flying to Europe.
Yep.
So what does it mean? It's a paradox. So if the whole purpose of stopping the flight is to prevent corona coming to European cities, then the Chinese carriers were flying, still flying. So what is the purpose of stopping those flights? Let's find out.
Not enough people on them, I suspect. Yeah.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
we're coming to the end of our
Right, yeah.
of our time.
Right.
But it's a question I'm always interested in when I get the chance to talk to CEOs of airlines.
Right.
What is it that wakes you up in the middle of the night in that? What frightens you?
Many. I wish many. I wish I have 2 or 3 or 4 of them here. And this is a very difficult industry, Alan. It is extremely difficult industry. You know, we were talking about on December 31st, and since I lived in New York for about 7 years, I always watch the ball coming down in Times Square. If I happen to be in New York, there. If not, then in my office through CNN. So on that day, I said 2019, goodbye. We'll never come back. This is a very, very challenging year with all the accident and everything. But in January, we have Corona again. Yeah. So I mean, this is never-ending list of challenges, one after the other, one after the other. So it is very exciting industry, but quite a lot of them wake you up the night. You have 130 airplanes on the air, so you have to be worried about safety and safe flying. You have maintenance, you have economics. Every month you have to see the books, and there is enough money to run the airline. You have labor issues. I mean, there are quite many things which wakes you up in the night. Well, and the business is so sensitive to diseases, wars. Look, now count the number of countries that we cannot overfly. Syria, Libya, Iraq, Iran now. Between Pakistan and India, Kashmir. You have to avoid this. And what does it mean? You have to make detour and fly more, longer hours and more cost. And the customer doesn't pay for it because it's not his business. All our flights now from Addis to China avoid the Kashmir area. And it means an hour more flight. Can we put an hour more flight cost on the fare? No, we can't. We have to absorb it. So it's a very challenging.
It's a tough job. Why do you still do it?
I don't know. But it's very interesting.
I think it's fair to say you're doing it very, very well. And
Thank you.
I hope you continue to do it. And
Thank you. Yeah.
I hope the tourism market gets here.
Yeah,
and we can all
thanks.
come here on vacation
Thank
as
you.
well. So,
Thank you.
Tewolde, thank you very, very much
Thank
for your
you
time.
very
Ladies and gentlemen, appreciate it.
Thanks.